Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for stopping by again. Well, today is the 12th of October, and the country officially opens to people who are not residents or citizens. People will start coming in. We don't expect a tidal wave at all. Let's face it, the airlines are in very serious trouble, so flights will open up slowly. Where there were 4 from a city, we may only have 1 now, and it's very logical. Why set up all those others if there's no demand? So they're waiting to see what the demand is. These first few weeks are going to be critical, and they're figuring out just how many people they might expect coming down, and then they adjust their schedule to fit that. And that'll continue on for a while. I don't think we'll be anywhere near back to the very high level of flights we had prior to the pandemic, probably until next year, and neither does Copa or any of the other airlines that I've heard from. So such it is, but that's all right. I mean, that's logical. They're trying to survive. Copa, our airline, thankfully, has been able to raise sufficient money in the private market to be able to get itself through this period. We were told up to 18 months, even at poor levels, whereas so many of the other airlines in the region have declared bankruptcy or facing it. So at least in that respect, Copa will continue to be having flights. It's just, again, they've had to mothball planes, and they've had to reduce sharply number of flights and all that business. They had to furlough staff. I mean, everybody's feeling the pain, and we're hoping that will ease up soon. Now, who's coming down at this stage? We'll find out when we see them come in, but I doubt very seriously it's a lot of tourists. It's a little early, the first day. But what I might expect to be seen over there are business people, because we do have so many firms, international businesses with regional headquarters down here, and some who produce here and so forth. I expect some of them will be coming in, despite Zoom and FaceTime and everything else. They do have their personnel moving around, and this will open up Panama to them. A group of some significance, and people sometimes forget here, are our snowbirds, as they're called in North America. These and here. These are the folks who leave 4 to 6 months every winter in the north to come south as a snowbird to escape that cold weather, the snow, the ice, and everything else. They are often people who have gotten visas here. They own properties. They may be expecting eventually to retire to that property, or not, whatever. And they come down, and as I like to say, it's when the last leaf falls on the tree and the wind outside is really cold and these people are packing. And this is about the time that we start seeing the first wave come in. And it gathers steam over the rest of October and into November, as you might imagine. So that's normal, and here we're opening up right around that time. So these folks own properties here. I mean, they're residents too. They just only spend half a year down here or less. So they're coming down. They want to see what's going on and everything else. So that will be, I assume, they will begin to at least show up. They may not come the first day, but they've been watching and waiting for a chance to come on down. So we'll see them. Whatever we see, we'll see, and we'll begin to get a sense of what it is you're looking for, how much money, if you're buying or renting, how much you're willing to spend, what you're looking, where you're looking to live, just everything else. And we want to introduce you to the city, or to the country. You need to, I often say, you need to get here, and everything clarifies. So what you need to do in your head is get a clear idea as you can at this stage of the basic things that you really want. And your limit as to how much you're going to pay for anything, and then income, and then you begin the process within a matter of a few days. It doesn't take people anywhere near as long as they think in the city to begin to get a sense of where they want to be and how much they're willing to spend. As you get out into the countryside and to other areas, then it's, of course, a little more time consuming because you have to travel. Also, we have to deal with the fact that mobility is somewhat limited in some of the rural areas now, but here in Panama City now, the only major thing that gets in the way of most people is that Sunday is everyone's inside. They don't, You could probably, if you're in a hotel, go to the hotel restaurant, something of this sort. But I mean, otherwise, we're all quarantined on Sundays, and outside in Chiriquí province, I believe it's still a Saturday-Sunday affair. It's all this sort of stuff is going on. I tell people who get really upset and say, "Oh, how are tourists going to deal with this?" is to relax and let's see who comes in and where they want to go, because they're not going to open an area and reduce the quarantine in areas where they've had sharp upticks, unless they are clear that there's a reason to do that. If there isn't any, then they want to keep this thing under control. But if people are saying we need to get there, trust me, the travel agents, the hotels, everybody else will be pointing them out very clearly to government officials. So I expect some of this to fade over the next few weeks as we determine who is actually interested in, who's actually showing up at the airport. I got a couple other questions here. Give me a second. I'm going to break off and grab them. They're not right in front of me. Okay, sorry. Another question I get from people, can I bring guns? No. Guns are not allowed in with foreigners. That includes a collector with a collection of guns now. That's been tried and failed. It's nothing to do with you. It's a history. Living in a very volatile region surrounding us, and so foreigners with guns are not appreciated. And this is very strict. Occasionally, somebody somewhere says it's easy to do this, or for some outsiders can, and others, are given special dispensation. I don't know what they come up with, but it's not true. This is not that kind of place. So if it's important to you to bring guns, you really should be looking at another country. It's just the way it is. Sorry, people get upset about it, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Mobility. This is can I get around? I just sort of mentioned that a moment ago. You will be able to. It keeps getting better and better. Our buses are running, and there's nothing wrong with the bus system here. It's really pretty good. Rental cars are available. The rental agencies are open. There aren't not all the offices. In fact, I had someone come in, a resident, a week ago, and there was no rentals at all at the airport. But he found the rental offices were open inside the city. And that's because there haven't been foreign arrivals. So, but there's domestic business. They do have always have some offices open here in town. And I assume maybe today they're going to start having somebody sitting out there at the airport, because there are going to be people who are going to need it. So a lot of this is going to happen because people are coming, like yourself, and they're asking for it. And it doesn't take long. This is a business country. And when people start hearing this sort of feedback, the wheels start turning and things will change within limits. And we still got a health emergency underway, and we're not interested in having a major increase in coronavirus cases. But other short of that, everything else is really open, and we will get to it eventually. Even the beaches, which have been closed and remain closed because they're hot spots for spreading the virus, these areas will eventually get open too, and we're just working it out as we go along. But it's being done very methodically. I think the most important thing, as I talked to you about in the major report from Panama I sent out a couple months ago, is that the two critical elements are stability and having money. That's what if a government has both, and the people in the nation has both, they have a much better chance of getting ahead in life. I want to say this has continued here very much. Unfortunately, not in our neighborhood at all. If you look at most Latin American countries, if not all of them, there's one or the other. Either they don't have any money and having trouble getting it, or they are facing demonstrations and strikes, and sometimes violence, definite violence. Colombia, Bogota, it's a terrible mess over there. Police, I don't know, I guess they tasered this man to death or something, but they killed him in broad view of all sorts of people with cell phones, and so it went viral, and there was all sorts of upset, obvious reasons. Because man, apparently, nobody has any idea. I don't have any idea what the problem was initially. But the point is that the reaction was pretty horrible, and you couldn't miss it if you were watching it. And people got out to protest that. That led to firing on the protesters, and a number of people, quite a few, in the hospital. And then it grew. So, we have so many of our countries in our neighborhood depend so much on natural resources, as is the case in Colombia with oil. The money's not there as it usually is. Even more importantly, in Colombia, they have somewhere between 1.5 million and 2 million Venezuelans. The 1.5 million figures like 9 months ago, or the end of last year, actually. They stopped updating it pretty much, but actually it's increased. There was a brief period where they talked about Venezuelans going back to Venezuela out of utter desperation because of the lockdown in Colombia. There are no jobs there. However, now we're told that Colombia is opening up, so some 200,000 Venezuelans are expected to come in. Under this sort of pressure and the lack of money, it's a big country that has some very wealthy people in it. It has some large-scale businesses, certainly by our standards, very large scale, and so forth. But as I often say, it's not just how much you make, it's how many mouths you have to feed. And on a per capita or per person basis, they are much poorer than this country, than Panama, is why we have so many of their people here working to earn dollars. So this is going on in so many places, and the lack of stability is just very disturbing. And then the lack of money. We have a perfect example here where Costa Rica is in terrible trouble. I don't know how they're going to make it the next year or two without more trouble. But they have fallen so far now into the junk bond category. This is how you raise some money to get through a period like this. They were paying over 9%, 9.5% to borrow money before the pandemic. Now they'd probably be up around 12. Their tourism, which is very important to them, is of course disappeared during the pandemic. They don't have anything else they sold. They exported the same problem. Basically, everything ground to a halt. They spend far more than they make, and it's been quite a problem for a number of years. This has been building up for a long time, and everybody knows it. The late 20th century, they were able to increase spending because income was growing too. But when they ran into problems in this century, they had trouble cutting back on the spending when the income wasn't what was expected. So anyhow, they're in a real pickle, and they need $1.75 billion, and they can't go in the private markets and expect to be able to pay the interest rates they get. So they have to go to the International Monetary Fund. The IMF is the last place to go when you need money. And the fund, which uses monies put in by your government, very possibly, and a number of others, insists on certain practices. Understandably, they want to get paid back. And they say you're going to have to reduce spending or increase your income or some combination of both. The government's been raising taxes. Whoa. Some have already taken place, what they call a VAT tax, a value-added tax. But in this instance, the way it's operated is basically a sales tax of 13%, which exists in the country already, but it's now being applied to everything they buy over the internet. I mean, Netflix, Airbnb, Amazon, you're going to pay an extra 13%. That's a lot. Right? That's just the beginning. And there are other things going on. So the result is they've tried to raise more taxes. And there's been a very strong reaction to that in Costa Rica. They're not the kind of burning buses and what have you, or as in, say, Colombia or another country. But there's trouble. And the unions, and not just the unions, let's not just point them out, but various groups within the society have blocked the roads. It's caused a mess. And it's causing more economic damage to the country, but they're absolute. And the majority in the National Assembly, the current president does not have a majority in the Assembly, which is not unusual, unfortunately, in Costa Rica. So he doesn't have that backing him up. So instead, the opposition, several different parties who actually control the place, and they are saying no taxes, definitely no taxes. We can't take any more taxes. And the government has decided to withdraw its its decision to raise taxes. They couldn't get them passed if they wanted to, and so therefore they are going to have to find ways to reduce spending. And I tell you, that's not going to be liked either. That's not going to be easy. So I don't know where that's going to end up. None of us do. It's now only now being discussed, even though, as I say, it's been building for years. It's only now being raised here in newspapers, and people are beginning to talk about it. I mean, we're certainly well aware of it. We, on the other hand, went out to the market. We had to pick up about, what was it? Over $2.5 billion, basically. That's a lot more money than they're looking for. We had 3 different bond offerings in the private market. I think the highest percentage we had to pay was 3.28 or something like that, a little over 3%. But the biggest single 10-year bond amounted to $1.25 billion, so $1,250 million, and that we got it at 2.25%. 2.25%. Put a 1 in front of that, and that might be what Costa Rica would get if it went into the market. Not only did we get these incredibly low rates, this is the lowest rate we've ever gotten for a 10-year bond in Panama's history. These are very low rates. We got 4 times as many requests to buy them as existed. In other words, we could have sold $10 billion instead of the 2.5 or plus that we did sell. Why does this happen? Why are we get this? It's because people trust us. Now, if we lost that trust, it'd be a disaster, but they do trust us, and for good reason. We have a long track record of stability and of paying our bills. It's so strong that in current bill debt that has to be paid from major projects in the past, every country has this. The government sat down with the banks and with everybody they owed money, so to speak, and they worked out changed the payment plan over the next 2 or 3 years. The people who lent the money, they don't lose any money. All we've done is collected at different times so that we didn't have one month when we had this huge bill and then the next month very little that we owed. Instead, they tried to level it out so that we had a fairly steady amount that we had to set aside for paying down debt every month for the next few years. And they did it. And people said, okay, sure, fine. Why? And no one's losing anything, but what we're gaining is some peace of mind and some, again, stability. We know what we owe and how much we're going to need. So all of this is and this was done here just among the various political parties, and everybody's involved, the businesses, the trade unions, everybody, and they talk about these things, and they're announced, and we know we've got a good thing going. That helps stability a great deal. So that's where we are at the present moment, but we are really in need of getting this economy jumping again. And you are going to be very important to that if you come down. Even if you only come down to visit and stay for a while, that'll be great. I will keep an eye on things and let you know how things are unfolding, and we'll see how it goes, and hope for the very best for Colombia, for Costa Rica, for Panama, for you, wherever you live as well. Thank you for stopping by, and I look forward to talking to you again.